Start with ladies first. We have Dr. Veronica Perkins. So Dr. Veronica Perkins, she is an education advocate. She is a former superintendent, and she's a lifelong educator. She's also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, so which is awesome. And next up, we have Dr. Johnie Miller. And Dr. Johnie Miller is currently a chief HR officer in Allendale, South Carolina, formerly also an assistant superintendent there as well, and a lifelong educator. He's also representing Kappa Alpha Psi today. Okay, excellent. And we also have, for our third guest, we have Dr. Luther Riley. Dr. Luther Riley is actually a principal, a ground-shaking principal out of Alabama. And he's also an amazing basketball coach, a winning basketball coach. And he's also a member of Omega Psi Phi. It's awesome to have some representatives of the Divine Nine in the building. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make sure that you guys can understand the purpose in which we're going to be talking about today. And before we even get started, go ahead and drop a 100 in the chat just to make sure that the panelists can feel your energy to let them know that you're excited to actually hear from them today. Go ahead and drop a 100 in the chat if you are excited to hear from our panelists today. Excellent. That's what I love to see. Excellent, 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 excellent. And so I want to make sure that we understand what the purpose of today is. The purpose of today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be discussing today, we're tackling one of education's most pressing issues, and that's centered around the nightmares of shortages, vacancies. And so when we talk about these vacancies, we have approximately 55,000 vacancies all across the country of educators, which is a huge problem. So the flow of today is going to go just like this. We have three rounds where there's going to be three different sets of questions that are going to be asked. And then we're going to have a Q&A where we're going to have some of the actual audience talk, speak, ask questions, and dive in. So with that said, let's do an icebreaker here. And this icebreaker, this is going to be a question for each of the panelists that we have here. So for the icebreaker, let's start here. We're going to start. So in your experience, and we'll go with ladies first. In your experience, what has been the most significant challenge schools face in addressing educator vacancies? So Dr. Perkins, let's hear from you.
I will speak, and thank you, Mr. Blanchard, for having us and for hosting this session, which is critical. It's pressing for so many schools. In terms of what's been most pressing for my environment is being able to get a highly qualified teacher in many of the critical shortage areas. And that means some of the higher math, science, ELA subjects are sometimes I'm not able to cover those with highly qualified teachers. The research is clear that those students most in need of a highly qualified teacher are sometimes the least able to get that instruction from that qualified teacher. And certainly in the rural area, that's been my challenge to get highly qualified teachers, especially in the critical areas.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dr. Perkins. Dr. Miller, let's hear from you. You're on mute, good sir.
Right, sure, Mr. Blanchard. Thank you so much again for inviting us, as Dr. Perkins said. And I would definitely have to mirror what Dr. Perkins said concerning being able to find the qualified individuals to be able to be in those classrooms, and then having too few applicants as well to choose from becomes a challenge, especially in the rural area. And I can speak to that because I am in the one of the most impoverished communities and districts in the state of South Carolina, and even within the United States of America, Allendale is. And so what we find is that this becomes an extreme challenge because many people do not want to come to the rural communities. And so we then compete with larger urban areas and those kinds of things that have a lot going on, especially for individuals that's coming right out of college. We just don't have a lot of the amenities that they're looking for. And so we're having to definitely put our best foot forward and be very innovative with trying to recruit the highly qualified people that we need.
Makes sense, makes sense. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Dr. Riley, let's hear from you.
Yes, first of all, again, Mr. Blanchard, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be on this panel. along with my colleagues here, Dr. Miller and Dr. Perkins, and of course to the attendees. It is a humbling experience for me. And my two colleagues said it best, Dr. Miller talking about the rural area. I'm gonna attach something to that. When you're Title I and you're rural. So I've made it practice to be an advocate for those Title I rural schools or inner city urban schools. And I guess my thing that I would say that that's really hard in addressing educator vacancies is those negative perceptions and stereotypes. See, in addition to limited applicant pools and what Dr. Perkins says, the high quality teacher, you talking about the negative perceptions and stereotypes, but I would welcome anyone to come into our school, certainly because it's not what you think. So if you can get by those things that my colleagues said, and of course with those negative perceptions and stereotypes, I think that this vacancy will subside.
Excellent. So I'll tell you what, that's the icebreaker, ladies and gentlemen. So now let's make sure that we can go to take care of some house things here. So first things first, I want to make sure that everybody knows that this masterclass right here is being brought to you by Fullmind. Fullmind is an innovative education technology company. And Fullmind fills vacancies and adds capacity to schools with state certified educators through virtual staffing and wraparound services to enhance student success and provide a safety net for students in need. And so Fullmind is in over 500 schools all across the country, working on situations like vacancies all across the country, spanning a number of different topics from virtual staffing to homebound resource room. The Scholar Prep is high dosage tutoring, test prep, homework help, and even virtual suspension room and credit recovery. So I want to make sure that I talk about that. And I want to make sure I make one mention that actively participate. So there's going to be some questions that are going to be coming to the audience. And for everyone that stays into the end, we have some top educated perks that we're going to provide you. And we have a Q&A at the end as well. But as for right now, we're going to go ahead and go right into round one. And so in round one here, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and bring this up. In round one, we're going to go ahead and move to the questions that we have here. So now round one, we're going to be talking about, vacancy nightmares and real world challenges. So in this section, what we're going to discuss here, we're going to discuss first off with Dr. Miller. We're going to start with you. So Dr. Miller, as a HR officer, can you share a specific example of a vacancy nightmare and the impact it had on the school district?
Yes, Mr. Blanchard. So it's very interesting that you asked that, because I actually got into this role where we had about 40 vacancies across our district. So I inherited the number of vacancies. So with that being said, I had to try to find innovative ways to be able to mitigate the situation, to find as many staff members as I could before the school year started, with probably about 30 days before we would be able to see our students. One of the things that in one of our schools, we have several, and I consider this a nightmare, several core subject areas that was without a teacher. Okay. And then especially mathematics. So we actually had several math positions in one school that was certainly unfilled. And when we look at, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, math and ELA scores for students across the U.S. have declined significantly, with the most notable drop seen in mathematics achievement, particularly in lower performing students across various demographics, and especially in rural communities. And so when we think about that, that was a nightmare for me, because not only am I having to look for 40 vacancies, but I'm having to look for vacancies that are core and that are essential, and those particular subject areas that are considered critical needs, as Dr. Perkins mentioned earlier. And when we talk about mathematics achievement being where it is and what the data is actually saying, and to have that number of math teachers non-existent, we had a real problem. And we'll talk about this probably a little bit further, a little later, but Full Mind came to our rescue in regards to our mathematics instructors, as well as some other instructors that we've been able to secure through Full Mind.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you very much, Dr. Miller. So, Dr. Perkins, this question is for you. So, what trends have you observed in education shortages, particularly in rural and underserved areas? It's on mute.
My colleague is eloquent in talking about the nightmare that comes when there are teacher shortages, and we know that nationally the shortages are there, but they are felt even more intently in rural and underserved populations. So I am from Arkansas, in the Boot Heel of Arkansas, near the Missouri. We're bordered by Missouri, Mississippi, Tennessee, and you're trying to recruit individuals to come and be a part of your system. And it's not happening. Those teachers that we need for those critical areas are not there. We've even seen the shortage of individuals coming out of university programs. They're just not there as well. So as a result of these shortages, you've seen more and more teacher burnout. So you have teachers who are in the system, who have these higher workloads, who try to maintain, but they experience burnout. And eventually it leads to so much turnover. And what rural and underserved environments do not need is instability. But because we have such instability in terms of being able to hire enough staff, individuals just say, I'm going to go somewhere else, and I am going to go to a place that is less challenging. So the shortages, while bigger environments may not feel it as much, we absolutely do. And it's a nightmare to tell parents and students that you cannot provide certain upper level courses because you don't have the staff. But the shortages, it just inhibit us from doing that. And so we feel it definitely in rural and underserved environments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so thank you very much, Dr. Perkins. I'm going to come over here to Dr. Riley. And so, Dr. Riley, a question for you. How do these vacancy challenges show up on the ground in a school environment? And so what's been your approach to mitigating their effects?
Yeah, great question. Great question, Mr. Blanchard. What's showing up on the ground at our school or in this type of situation would be, as Dr. Perkins said, an increased teacher workload. You think about when you staff are asked to do additional things aside from their core class or one extracurricular club or organization, you have to take on a bigger class load or things like that. With those gaps that those students have, certainly some are asked to teach outside of their field. So that's one. So, and I call it my key three. The second one, inconsistent student achievement and outcomes. When you think about what's showing up on the grounds here, when you have those teacher shortages, when I get a student that's maybe a grade or two levels behind, and I have just a body in that classroom as a classroom teacher, I mean, how can that really help that student to be as successful as he or she wants to be? You talking about gaps in instruction that really affects high needs areas like rural areas like I'm in, like Title I school like I'm in, or area that I'm in. And of course, the last one I would say is, as a part of my key three, would be a decline in school culture and morale. When you have so much teacher turnover, a lack of teacher or a teacher shortage, you don't know how can you keep a good morale going on in your building. How can your climate and culture and school culture be conducive to teaching and learning? And you know what's the really big deal of it all? This has been often stated as the greatest equalizer there is, education. And think about what we're talking about now. You know, we're really at an alarming time where we have to really really recruit and retain the profession that I know you all and myself love. I mean, so I would say that would be my key three: increased teacher workload, inconsistent student achievement and outcomes, and of course, a decline in school culture and morale.
I would say those are some key, I like the three keys that you have there. They give a really roundabout understanding of what's going on. And some of the experiences that you all talked about in the rural areas are key. So I'm interested because we hear some of the nightmares, some of the tragedies that are going on, but we want to move into some of the successes. What's working out there? And as we talk about some of these here, I want to make sure I can ask this question first. And this question is for all the panelists. And what we'll do, I'll go ahead and with this question, we're going to start with you, Dr. Miller. So what innovative strategies have you seen or implemented to address these challenges and fill vacancy with qualified educators?
So one of the things I would want to say here is that we use, one of the things we use was referral base. So we began to use what we call utilizing referrals, because we understand, and I thought about this, people who work in education know others who work in education, right? So those who are teaching and even those that are in non-teaching positions, they usually know people like themselves. I think about a quote that says, "It takes a big heart to help shape little minds." If I am a heart person and I understand that it takes heart in order to be an educator, I also surround myself with individuals that's like-minded, right? And like-hearted. And so with our referral program is, if you're able to refer somebody to our district to be a teacher or any other position that we might have, and that person actually gets successfully hired, the person who referred them would actually get a stipend. And then the person who is the candidate would be able to get a bonus. And so this past year, we were able to do a $15,000 bonus for those certified teachers. Now, of course, we know with funding, we can't always be able to keep up with that, especially $15,000, because we also understand that money is not everything. I have to quote something that Dr. Riley said about climate and culture. You can pay someone an astronomical amount of money, but if the climate and culture is not on point in that particular school or that particular school district, people will walk away from money, but they don't walk away from people. If you make someone feel like they are the best thing, I'll say, since sliced bread, if you make them feel valued, if you would make them feel like they belong and they're a part of a family, they will run through a wall for you. And so we believe that by doing these personal interactions of referrals, that we would actually get individuals who would be able to be long-lasting educators. These are probably people who are getting the bulk of the climate and culture and how that climate and culture is in that school district from that family member, from that friend, from that former colleague, of saying, "Hey, this has been my experience and I absolutely love it here. You know, our climate and culture is great. Come on over here." And we're seeing that by using this referral method, that we've gotten a lot of highly qualified people that we would not have been able to tap into otherwise without utilizing those connects and those networks.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Bravo. Bravo. I love it. And I hear you even quoting what Dr. Riley mentioned as well. This is good. I'm loving it where this conversation is going here. I want to make sure we can ask that same question to Dr. Perkins. That I want to ask that question: what innovative strategies have you seen or implemented to address the challenges to fill vacancies with qualified educators?
So we've used Grow Your Own. There's just going to have to be an investment in individuals to support the environment. So we've done the Teach for Arkansas to make sure that we had classes that were offered in 11th and 12th grade to get students familiar with the educational process, to give them a leg up, to allow them to see what teaching and learning is about. And hopefully when we send them to college, that they're wanting to go into education. And so you're just going to have to invest in your own. We've done the same thing with paraprofessionals. You have some really bright individuals that if you were to invest a little bit of time in it, you could come out with a really great teacher. They just need a little bit of support. They need someone who will believe that they can do it. And you might have to invest a little bit of money. We used a piece called Liberty University, where we paid $75 a month for a paraprofessional. It'll take them about 3 years, but at the affordable cost of $75 a month for you to get a teacher, I think that's a wise investment. And so since we see that teacher programs are not turning out, you should seek within your community, within your school community, those individuals who have a capacity and grow some into the pipeline to fill your vacancies.
That's good. That's good. I like that. It's an acronym for that now. It's hashtag GYO, grow your own. I like that. So Dr. Riley, we're going to come to you with the same question here. So what innovative strategies have you seen or implemented to address these challenges to fill vacancies with quality educators?
I like the idea of growing your own. We do that in our district. But for me personally, I like to get a leg up. You know, my key three would be, number one, proactive recruitment and retention initiative from this perspective. Well, you know, I know that based on what we do at our school is put everybody on a growth plan. So even if the lead principal is on a growth plan, that means this. And it speaks to the climate and culture of my school, to where we want to be high achievers. So if I'm growing, everybody is growing. So with that said, when I know a teacher is not growing based on the support that we're giving them, it goes from a growth plan to a plan of improvement. You got what I'm saying? And you know what happens after that. Then proactively, what we try to do is be a part of the process. When my HR person goes out, I know my climate and culture. So I said, hey, HR, hey, I need to tag along. And then I'll take a particular teacher, perhaps one that speaks to a certain group, ethnic group, or one that is familiar with a certain area. So those are my number one thing, to be proactive in my recruitment and retention. Secondly, I believe in strengthening community engagement. That word community, when you really stress that word community, from the classroom to my office, to the secretary's office, to the custodian's office, throughout the whole building, when you have that word community and it's authentic and transparent, the word gets out itself. We tell our own story. It tells itself. And of course, we help tell our story. And once the momentum starts, hey, you know, we are really, you know, they're not beating the door down yet, but they're knocking, you know, so we want to make sure that they're knocking and beating the door down. Then, of course, my last one is this, fostering a supportive environment. Teachers want to know, and one of my colleagues said it earlier, am I going to be supported? So we've created mentoring groups. We had teacher groups that new teachers go out every Thursday to hang out, whether not dinner, they go to a game, they're doing something where we really support our teachers from a professional development perspective, because I just believe, and you said this, Mr. Blanchard, that I was a basketball coach. You're exactly right, but I was a championship basketball coach. So what we do at our school, we have something called campus champions. So everybody wants to win, believe it or not. So how do you win with teachers? How do you retain them? And my based on my research is you make them matter. You make them feel like Dr. Miller said, you make them feel like an All-American. So now when you come in the building, you celebrate those teachers. You really and you celebrate them authentically. You're not just buying some donuts and juice just to be buying it. It's a real authentic celebration. And certainly I just believe that I just don't want to come to a place where I got to be mad with my friend, with my colleague, feel bad, you know, and not growing as a person. So those are my key three right there.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a lot of education bars coming out that you guys are spewing out right now. I love it. I love the campus champions concept. I love the outings with the educators because everyone is speaking about building community within. I love GYO, grow your own, right? All of these things are things that when you talk about that community, and even Dr. Miller, when he talked about the amount of money that they're actually providing, all of these types of strategies, referrals and everything else are really critical and key to get the ball rolling. So let's go ahead and go into some more questions. I'm going to actually come back to you, Dr. Miller. So Dr. Miller, what I want to do here, I want to ask you this question. So can you highlight any tools or platforms that you've been especially effective in recruitment, particularly for specialized or hard to fill roles? You're on mute.
Thank you. So I would have to talk about alternatives. So in South Carolina, we use a lot of alternative certification programs. That's number one. So we have various ways that individuals can come into the into education. Like Dr. Perkins said earlier, a lot of the teacher education programs are just not producing the type of educators that they once produced. And then also at an alarming rate, individuals are not even going into the School of Education at all. And so we're having to look for career changers. We're having to look for people who majored in things other than education to try to figure out a way and a pathway for them. For example, I majored in biology, minored in chemistry, and I was directed towards a medical profession. But as you can see, I am Chief Human Resource Officer in a school district. But it took some work around how are we going to bring forth these innovative strategies for individuals who are working in other fields, for them to say, hey, I want to come and help out the educational community, but I've never gotten any of the pedagogy, and I've never gotten any of the other practices that I needed to in college because I didn't major in teacher school of ed or teacher education programs. But one thing I can say about the alternative programs is because they provide a lot of modules, a lot of coursework, a lot of practicums, and all kinds of things that would help individuals acclimate to becoming teachers. Also providing coaches and providing those wraparound supports for those individuals so those persons can be successful in other words. And I'll tell you, I've seen some individuals who've never stepped foot in a school of ed program have been dynamic educators. So we cannot sleep on bringing career changers and persons utilizing alternative certification programs. That's number one. I'll also say do not sleep, and I'll say it again, do not sleep on virtual education. Although it's probably not at times not the best thing for certain populations of schools and students and districts. But I will tell you, in our school district, and I am Full Mind, I'm using Full Mind in our district. We have used Full Mind for several years now. And I've also used other platforms like Full Mind. But I'll tell you, Full Mind by far has been one of the best virtual programs that we found. The program has certified teachers. We have staff from Full Mind who comes, checks on the teachers, observe the teachers, provide feedback. We have debriefing sessions and check-in sessions every month, making sure that our school district has everything that they need to be successful with those teachers. If the teacher does not work out, they're very timely with making the necessary adjustments and changes to those staff members to ensure that the best quality teacher is in front of our students. And I'll tell you, yes, it's best to have an in-person instructor. But if you're in instances and in cases and scenarios and in populations and your demographics does not call for an in-person teacher because of the challenges and the obstacles that we face, go to Full Mind, because they have exactly what you would need to be able to provide, even from a virtual standpoint. The other piece I want to say about Full Mind is that we also get an opportunity to select a virtual facilitator to actually be in that classroom with that virtual teacher to help support, to be the boots on the ground for that teacher and support that teacher in any way, shape, or form that they need. So those are just some things that we do. I was talking to somebody earlier today and talk about college fairs. Some people think that career fairs are a thing of the past, okay? Or that career fairs are antiquated. I'm a very personable guy, right? I like to interact with people, because sometimes when you're able to interact with people on a one-on-one basis, people will come to your school district because of you, the contact that you have made, and you are the deliverer of your climate and culture in your district. You are a representative. So when you meet an individual, I don't care if it's in New York and you want them to come to South Carolina, they will come from New York to South Carolina because they met you. And you are a representative of the climate culture in your district, which means that you have to mirror, your school district have to mirror you, and you have to mirror your school district, and you have to foster that type of climate and culture that will bring somebody to your school district, despite challenges, despite obstacles, and despite these educator vacancies, nightmares, and challenges that we face.
You know what? Thank you very well. Thank you very much. Spoken very well, Dr. Miller. Shout out to Full Mind. I see what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Miller, is that you guys use all types of strategies. So I'm hearing like you guys are paying 15,000 referrals. You guys are doing all types of different fairs. You guys are creating those relationships. You guys are going virtual. So you're doing all hands on deck is what I see. Excellent. Excellent. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead. Let's come on over to, let's go to Dr. Perkins. So Dr. Perkins, how can administrators better leverage local, state, and federal funding to support recruitment and retention efforts?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so we talked about money, and I almost said it's so we can have a wonderful culture and climate, and we can provide competitive salary, benefits, those kinds of packages. I can tell you that in Arkansas, if we had stayed at 36,000 at the minimum, we were going to have even more of a shortage. So we raised across the state to 50,000. But sometimes in a rural area, that may not even be enough. So what are the sign-on bonuses or the packages that you can give in terms of health benefit, insurance, retirement, those kinds of things? You have to be willing to think about those pieces. Tuition reimbursement. So if you're wanting teachers to continue their education, you give them some reimbursement kinds of pieces so that they can continue with their education and continue in your district. That's in terms of local funding. I'll say for state funding, there are recruitment grants that you can apply to your state's Department of Education to be able to give some of those bonuses, to create some of those career ladders. You may have individuals who don't want to just remain in the classroom. They want to be instructional facilitators. They want to be administration. So how do you help them go up that career ladder and give them the funding that they need in order to do that? And last, I'll say on the federal piece, I think my colleague, Dr. Miller, said so eloquently, to support teachers. So Title I pieces with professional development, so that teachers are well skilled to do their work. They don't feel isolated. They get the support that they need, because teachers will walk in the first 3 to 5 years. Teachers walk out of the door because they don't feel supported. They feel overwhelmed because we haven't used some funding to give them the support that they need. So you have those federal dollars, allocate those dollars to give individuals, to give teachers the support that they need. So after 3 to 5 years, teachers don't just walk away because they're overwhelmed by the by the teaching expectations.
And I love that when you talked about money, and when you talk about money, you're talking about state, local, federal. One of the things I heard was people want to be compensated. So you're talking about retirement, bonuses, raises, tuition reimbursement, whatever you can do to make this package good. I think that's a beautiful thing that educators want. Thank you very much, Dr. Perkins. We're coming to you, Dr. Riley. So, Dr. Riley, as a school principal, how do you ensure your school culture supports retention once quality educators are hired?
Yeah, great question. I want you to think about something. Keeping this in mind from the National Center of Education Statistics. And I want you to hear this when I say this. 86% of U.S. K-12 public schools reported challenges hiring teachers for this past year. 86%. And more importantly, 83% had trouble hiring for non-teacher positions, such as classroom aides, transportation staff, mental health professionals, and that wraparound service Dr. Miller was talking about. So you put that in perspective. So it behooves me, once I get a highly qualified person, I have to be, it behooves me not to do all I can to keep them here. My key three, number one, of course, teacher agents. Teacher agents. What I have to do is empower my teachers, as Dr. Perkins said, from a support perspective, to where they can manage their own growth and then help their colleague to grow. Teacher agency is number one. Number two is organizational knowledge. What I have to do as an administrator is understand every student that come in my building, their needs, what they need to be successful. I have to understand every teacher's strengths. I have to know my teacher, know the strengths, know the struggles, so I can adequately provide that support that Dr. Miller and Dr. Perkins talked about. And then I have to understand the instructional curriculum to where I can set my students and teachers up for success. Positive beliefs and high standards. So in my school, we have a saying where you have to be positive or very positive. It's just that simple. You have to be positive or very positive. So you have to believe in students' abilities to achieve, and the operative word being believe. Once you show, especially students in the rural and inner city areas that's impoverished, all they need is their love. That's all they need. Now, perhaps sometime I tell these students that love, perhaps sometime may be a little tough love now, but certainly it has to be that love to where you put that belief mechanism in them. And then of course my key, my last key is, and I said it earlier, recognize and celebrate achievements. So everybody wants to feel like they matter. Every person in the building. Now, it's hard for the administrator. I mean, this is hard work. However, it's rewarding work. Now, every person in the building has to feel like they belong, like they matter. If they don't, you talk about that climate, you talk about that culture, and let me speak to that for a second. When you talk about climate and culture, it's so many scholarly beliefs on what climate and culture really is. But climate and culture is simply this. Culture is the processes and systems I'm using to ensure that continuity happens throughout the building. I center that around my climate because my climate is simply how do the staff, how do the students feel when they enter this building? It's that simple. It's that simple. So my key three again, organizational knowledge, which means that teacher I have to make sure teachers understand their needs, staff and things like that. Positive beliefs and high standards. Hey, I don't care, and I don't say it in this perspective, but I say it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It matters where you're going. You have no nothing to do with where you're coming from. So now the bar is high. And, you know, and I have to put this in, before school starts, we do something called a pride ride. So I take all the teachers, and it was really eye-opening for some of our teachers to where, and it's a pride ride because once you see from whence our students come from, it goes to show you that I cannot have a day off. I cannot waste time in class. I cannot have high teacher absenteeism. I cannot have that. I got to have somebody every day for every child, every opportunity pouring into them, making sure they have an opportunity to succeed.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I tell you what, I'm excited about what you just said. You have to be positive or more positive. And so that's the energy we want to have in the building. So I love that. I love it. I love it. You know what? What I'm going to do here, this is so good. I've been taking gems from all of you and I'm sharing them in the chat. And I'm sure that everyone here is enjoying the value that all of you are bringing to the table here. This is phenomenal. So I'm going to go into round 3 and I'm going to actually ask a question here. In this one, we'll keep it brief. I have one question for each of you, and then we're going to go into Q&A. Okay. So what I'm going to go here, this is for all the panelists. How do you ensure diversity and inclusion in hiring practices, especially when facing tight budgets or limited candidate pools? I think DEI is a hot topic in America right now. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that one out there for you. We'll go ahead and start with Dr. Miller. We'll start with you, and then we'll bring it around.
So I think we go back to something Dr. Perkins said, I think earlier, in terms of connecting to the community, looking at local talent. But not only that, I think making sure that we look at every single avenue and don't leave any rock unturned, right? Looking at various colleges, PWIs, HBCUs, tribal colleges. I mean, you name any type of institution, you want to try to see how you might be able to create this diverse pool of candidates. Not only that, engaging with professional networks, utilizing social media, utilizing Facebook groups, and those kinds of things that might afford you a diverse group of individuals that you might be able to win over. Also, when we think about that, as we're looking in terms of things that might be a little different. For example, we have partnered with 2 agencies, one Salient and another agency called University Instructors. And what they do is they are like the third party. And they go out seeking individuals for you, staffing for you. They allow for you to interview them. You can tell them whether or not you want that person or not. What I really like about it is that you don't have to put them on full contracts. You can put them on agreements and those things, and you can observe their performance and see whether or not those persons are a good fit. What I like about University Instructors versus Salient is they have wraparound services. Each one of those staff members or those teachers that they send our way come with an instructional coach that would actually support them, help them, develop them. They get additional PD with University Instructors as well. So those are just some things, because what we're finding is that we're getting people from all over the place, all different types of diversity and those kinds of things coming from those 2 companies and agencies. So those were my pieces.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so we're going to go ahead and come around to Dr. Perkins. I'll ask the question again. How do you ensure diversity and inclusion in hiring practices, especially when facing tight budgets or limited candidate pools?
Oh, yeah. So I'll echo those sentiments that Dr. Miller shared, just leveraging the existing networks and partnerships that you're inclusive of lots of entities, universities, colleges, HBCUs, those pieces. But I've, even leveraged relationships to bring Philippine teachers to my campus. I hired 8 teachers. I needed teachers so desperately. I was willing to go through that J1 visa process, and have been very happy
Wow.
with the 8 Philippine teachers. Again, there's investment there, and we have to support them. But going outside of the box, I think, is what my real takeaway from this is to access whatever network you need to access in order to meet student needs.
Wow. So even people from the Philippines, that's actually being real innovative, reaching across not even just across the country, but reaching across international lines to actually bring people to the school. That's amazing. Okay. So Dr. Riley, we're going to ask you the same question. So how do you ensure diversity and inclusion in hiring practices, especially when facing tight budgets or limited candidate pools?
Yeah, I guess you always call on me last. They give out all the great answers, Mr. Blanchard. Great job. But put the pressure on. But certainly, number one, of course, my key 3, number 1, broaden the recruitment network. Leverage diverse job boards. We are 99.9% African-American, but education doesn't have a color. So what I do is I go out and reach, and we have probably 45% Caucasian staff, so I go find educators. So I broaden my recruitment network. I review and revise job postings. So I'm really intentional about how I post my jobs and their job description, and it speaks to that language, diversity, inclusion. We put that language in our job description to ensure that that's not what we're looking for, but that's what we're looking for. You got what I'm saying? And we want to make sure that when you have a little diversity is always good because it brings about different cultures, different changes, and it's kind of like a pluralistic society within a school, and then of course, my second one would be build local talent pipeline. So we have two colleges or three that's within a 100-mile radius. I have to be a partner with them to ensure that I know coming out of those education programs, who can help our school, our demographics, and things like that. And then, of course, as Dr. Perkins said, we had 4 teachers from China to actually come to our school. And I got it from my colleague in the neighboring state. Yeah. And that's, of course, being a person that's kind of international myself, I've been to China and Italy and all across the world. So, they are wanting to get here and delve into our educational processes. And then I promote flexibility and creativity. I'm big on innovation and creativity, creativeness. So when you see a Caucasian leading our Black History program, everybody will look sideways at first, but then they'll see that my history teacher can talk about slavery. It's okay, it's education does not have color, so that'll be my key 3: broaden the recruitment network, be intentional about your job postings, and of course, promote flexibility activity.
And I'll add this one to yours. You said, "Oh, you're leaving me last," and they're taking all the good ones, and you come up with 3 keys. Okay, so we appreciate you for adding that good energy there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make sure that we can dive into the Q&A here, and I want to make sure you guys can go ahead and ask some questions. So, if you have some questions here, let me know. Go ahead and put me in the chat, and I'll go ahead and open it up so that you can speak as well. And then we'll go ahead and go from there. So I'm looking for the questions for who has a question. And and Patience said that she is unable to speak multitasking, but she actually has a question. We're gonna get to that question, and I'm gonna come to Kay because Kay's question, she's here to speak, and we'll come to yours too, Patience. Kay, talk to us. You are currently
Hello,
on mute.
hello, hello.
There you go.
So, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
1-800, this is awesome. Dr. Riley, don't do that. Dr. Miller, he stay ready. And yes, ma'am, Miss Veronica, I'm loving it. My question to you, I hear a lot of going out and getting from other countries, but I also hear a lot about working with your own and being flexible. And my question to all of you are, what are your thoughts on looking at the um, current things and opportunities that families may face in your current employees and looking at maybe hybrid options that would allow them to have that stakeholdership and maybe be able to work from home a few days or help with their families. Have you ever thought about that, or what are your views of that instead of reaching out and maybe in that hashtag GYO? Thank you for the opportunity.
So I think that's a really great question. And what I would like is for one person to answer that question for us. Anybody have it?
Yeah, let me speak to that. Let me be first this time, Mr. Blanchard. I respect the question. I love the question, but let me tell you what one of our strategies and innovations we did here. We have something called Parent Teacher Leadership Academy, where we partner with the University of Alabama, where parents, teachers, and leaders get together and create a project every year. So we was the recipient. We won that grant last year because we had the best project, and our project was a true collaboration, parental involvement and staff involvement. Where are you going, Dr. Riley? Let me tell you where I'm going. So what the project entailed was this: we created a parent university at our school to where those paraprofessionals or those people that lacked 20 to 30 hours to get their college degrees, we had within our parent university, we had actual classes going on, night classes going on for those paras or whoever desired to be a teacher, especially since our state gave a 12% pay raise to our teachers last year. So, and I've sell it. Hey, you're a para, you're making this. You can make this. You love you where you are. You do good work. Why not get compensated for it? So we actually placed, I've been here a year and 4 months. We've placed 3 teachers through our program, 2 at my school and 1 at a middle school because they're on the same campus as we're on. And we saw so much success out of those 3 teachers in 1 year and 1 semester.
Wow. We love to see the energy that's put into these teachers, and we love to see the productivity that comes out of them as well. You know what? I'm going to come on over here to Melody. And Melody, if you could just ask your question, we have you here as well. You got the floor, Melody.
Hello, thank you so much for spending your time this afternoon, kind of giving us some background about how you've developed strong systems. My question that I typed was, as a leader, I know you all are saying people need to do this, people need to do this. What did you need to hear, or what did you need to know more about in order to think outside the box and use virtual staffing as an option and really diversify your teachers' shortage solutions?
All right. Thank you, Melody. And so that question is going to go to you, Dr. Miller.
All right. So one of the things is, I think at some point when we take a look at virtual instruction, I think we look at the first thing is that in-person teachers are the best teachers for students. But I think when we start to really look at that, one of the things I did was when we went into partnership with Full Mind, I went in at that time, I was not the human resource person, but I was the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. I actually walked into these classrooms. I observed the classrooms just like I would observe classrooms of teachers that were in person. I would also